Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 hit Netflix on February 18th. Not to be confused with The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974 or The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. I was going to do a whole series review, but I figured I should wait until I have the Blu-ray for all of them, and seeing as how I only have the original, 2, the remake, and then the prequel of the remake, yeah, I should hold off. I should preface this by saying this is all my opinion, and I encourage you to leave yours in the comments down below. Film acts as a direct sequel to the 1974 original, and it completely slashes out the rest of the movies from the continuity. The only two that matter are the original and this one. It raises a lot of questions about what our pal Leatherface has been up to in the meantime. It's just shy of 50 years. The answers were provided kind of just raise more questions, but I'll touch on that in the spoiler section because I don't want to spoil things for you. The film follows a main group of 4 young friends. This would be Melody, her sister Lila, Dante, and Ruth. They seem to have made a great living off of social media. Such a great living, in fact, that they were able to buy up a small town and auction it off to other fellow internet celebrities. On top of this, of the younger cast, there's the original characters of Sally Hardesty, who was the final girl in the 1974 original, and then Leatherface, everyone's favorite. As expected, things go wrong and we get Leatherface going on a massacre with a chainsaw in Texas. The film's kills were some of the goriest in the franchise's history, with some cringe-inducing moments, like in a good way. It's not a bad one. I mean, there's the dumb lines, but I think those were intentional. It's very interesting because this is very polar opposite to the way the original handled its violence, where really you saw 2 instances of blood and a hammer being hit over the head twice. That's it. Everything else is just in your imagination. Between this and the recent Halloween movies, I gotta say, I'm really digging these old man slasher villains coming back. The movie's characters range from awful human beings to underdogs you really want to see succeed, and then there's a nice redemption arc in the movie as well, which was unexpected but very welcomed. Another highlight was the film cinematography. There's a lot of nice colors in this movie. The editing has some slick transitions that really are cool, especially in the later half, I'd say. There's one in particular, but I'm not going to spoil what it is. When the camera does make movements, I mean, typically it's set, it's good to go, but when it does move, it reveals something cool. There's actually something early on, it's not a movement, but it reveals something. It's one of my favorite things that horror movies do, and I don't think enough do it. I want you to watch it and look for it. It's in the first few scenes. It's so good. I'll touch on it in the spoiler section if you must know, or if you've already seen it. It's perfect to know. Despite being filmed entirely in Bulgaria, it feels like it could be within a reasonable distance of the original town. The only thing that it doesn't properly capture, in my opinion, is the heat. How uncomfortable the original was. Like, everything in that movie, you do not want to be in that town in the original at all. You just wanted to get out of there. It really gets under your skin. Whereas this one, aside from Leatherface, doesn't look like that bad of a place to live. Gotta be honest. The film's soundtrack was pretty solid. It's not very memorable, but it does have some nice callbacks to the original that I appreciated. I had a few gripes with the movie. I know I've been praising it a lot here, and I want to be vague, but I do go into a little bit of detail here. But I think the character of Leatherface didn't feel like Leatherface. Perhaps it's the 50 years, just shy of 50 years, that we missed out on seeing him, so he had some behind-the-scenes development. Given his life and his experiences from what we saw in the first one, and then going from there, he didn't feel like the same character. There was little inklings of the same character that were sprinkled in, but not fully. Like, I don't know. He didn't feel like the same person. Leatherface has an innocence about him in the original that I don't think this one captures, which is unfortunate, but hey, I like the movie overall, but Leatherface didn't feel right. Speaking of not feeling right, how old is this man? He's gotta be pushing 70, right? Right? Not only does he look great for his age, he moves great for it too. With that in mind, the vital family aspect of Leatherface is almost completely absent here, which left him feeling more generic than anything, which is unfortunate. Another thing that kind of ticked me off was the use of the iconic screech, that noise. I probably did it terribly. I'm sorry. It was out of place to use when somebody opened up a barbecue. I hated it. We're moving into the spoiler section now. If you've seen the movie, stay. If you haven't, probably leave. But if you don't care, I'm not your parent. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But that's your warning. I'll definitely be jumping back and forth in terms of the movie's timeline. This is a full-on spoiler talk, no gradual build-up to something big. This is quite possibly the most aptly named entry in the franchise. Basically, every cast member is dead by the end of the movie. There's one survivor out of the entire town, which is kind of crazy. You had a nice little passing of the torch, or in this case, a passing of the hat, because you know, Texas. Sally's inclusion was cool. I appreciate it, but it felt weird, because you have these, again, the 50 years that are gone. It doesn't feel like the same character. I mean, not like she was some super fleshed out character in the original, but it felt like, I wish we got a couple flashbacks of something to show what she did in the meantime. Like, comparably to 2018's Halloween, where we saw that Laurie Strode had a family. She had some happiness, and then she prepped her whole life waiting for Michael to come back. With Sally, it's like she was a ranger? I think I read that somewhere, but I'm not fully sure. So, and she was looking for him for 50 years, and I mean, it's a small town. That limp after cutting his leg with the chainsaw would be pretty distinct. I don't buy it. And with that, it kind of sours the moment of she dies anyways, so I mean, why bring her back? I was also confused as to where Leatherface's family went, like the father, the brother, and grandpa. I mean, I'm pretty sure grandpa's dead. Pretty sure, but unless he's just living dust at this point. Did the police go to the residence and arrest those two and then put Leatherface in foster care? Is that what happened? And then he grew attached to the woman who was running it? Or did they pass away and he went to foster care? What happened? I totally could have missed that 100%, but I don't know what happened. So if we assume that the police instantly got custody of him, and he was at the orphanage for, let's even say 45 years instead of 47 or 48, whatever it is. All those years of training with this new moral compass, and she dies, and then he instantly reverts back to his youth. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, you could argue that he is snapped and he's going back to what he knew, but if he has been taught for over half of his life to think and act a certain way, you'd think that it would kind of overtake it, but I don't know. The part where he puts on, I mean, he cuts off her face and wears it, and then he puts on the makeup and he confides in the dress, and like, that's one of the cooler moments of the movie for me, because it shows that piece of that innocence that I was speaking of earlier. I definitely think the angle of the family being the evil ones and then Leatherface just being impressionable and not knowing any better is a better way to go, but I enjoyed this movie as well. It's just, I preferred him being more unique than, big scary man with chainsaw. On that note too, the innocence that I spoke of Leatherface not knowing any better, it's completely gone here. He is just an unstoppable monster. The movie completely makes him supernatural. He is not human. I shot him 6 times. No, different franchise. Although he probably does get shot 6 times. He is not human in this one. There is no way. He survives like 4 stabs, I want to say. Maybe 2. At least 2. Like a solid 5 shotgun shots. Close range, like where all the pellets hit. At least a couple pellets hit, but I don't know if the full spread got him. And a chainsaw to the face. Again, he's pushing 70. How is he okay? And if he can survive all that, why did the chainsaw hit from 1974 damage him so bad? I don't get it. Early on in the movie, what I was talking about earlier, the really cool shot, when Dante is trying to remove the flag, you can see Leatherface in the bottom left corner of the screen. There is no sound effect, no zoom in, no camera pan, no nothing. Nothing that would divert your attention to it. And I love that it did that. They cut away, come back, and he's gone. I mean, the shot's a little bit zoomed out now, but the fact remains, if you were watching earlier, you saw something cool. You're in on it. Most movies don't do this, and I love when they do. It's awesome. I wish more horror movies did that. It's arguably more terrifying than a stupid jump scare. Melody's death caught me a bit off guard, gotta be honest. Because I thought when the girls took him out and he dropped in the pool, he was gonna jump out Jason Voorhees style and do like a freeze frame, and there we go, movie's over. No, they get away. You get into a car, they go to the car. With the car, it felt like a product placement, because it looks cool. They get in. Has a nice interior, has autopilot, nice sunroof window. Leatherface interrupts the advertisement to let Lila see her sister just ahead in front of her. I feel like the kills in this movie were great, although it seems like Leatherface took it a little bit easy on our old pal Dante. I mean, when you look back at it, he didn't even finish him off. Compare that to Richter, who gets turned into pure head cheese, as Leatherface's brother would have put it. I feel like Richter refused to sell him a car like 20 years ago. Not even 10 years ago, let's say. He had it out for that dude. All in all, I really enjoyed the movie, but I wish that it had some elements that it touched on more. With there being a post-credit scene, I'm hopeful for a sequel that addresses the issues that I had with it, like with the no family, Leatherface being very old, but very invincible? Putting it lightly. And just Leatherface not feeling like Leatherface. I mean, there was pieces, but not fully there. He just felt more like a generic slasher in this movie. It's just still a great movie, but in my opinion, a great movie in my opinion, I should put. But it didn't feel like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, despite having all three things in the title in the movie, but you know what I mean. My question is now, does Lila go home and tell everybody about what happened, and then do we get, like, law enforcement coming into Harlow? I mean, at the same time, if Lila goes and tells her parents or something and reports it, there's also all those people on the bus that live stream their deaths. What happens there? Are we gonna see Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2024? Leatherface fights a tank with a chainsaw. I don't know. Anything can happen now. I enjoyed the movie. I really recommend it. I think it was a lot better than I was expecting, and I've seen people being overly critical on it, and obviously it's not as good as the original. The original still is the best in the franchise, but I think this movie was a really good time and the best one they've done in a very long time. That said, thank you for watching. That's about all I have to say on this. I hope you share your thoughts, give it a thumbs up if you liked it and whatnot, subscribe if you want more. I have playlists and stuff, I don't know. I appreciate it. You're great.